it out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 548th edition of Energy Week with George Harvey and Tom Fennell. Tom, where are you?
I'm at home.
Tom is at home.
I'm in the flesh, but not in the studio.
We've heard that. Okay. Energy Week is based on materials that I put together in my blog, geoharvey.com, geoharvey.com, where you can go and get news on a daily basis. I've put up a news about energy and climate change. And I have put up a post to that particular site every day since the 2nd of June, 2012. So I've been at it there for a while.
For a while, haven't you?
Yeah, I have been. Energy Week has been going for almost 10 years.
So this is like the best of the posts.
Best of the blog.
Best of the blog, right?
That's right. And Tom and I talk about usually 3 items for each day. And I should mention, by the way, that because of calendar problems, the studio is not going to be open on Thanksgiving, and it's not going to be open on another Thursday. The next show, I think it's the next show, is going to be instead of being a 7-day show with 3 items per day, it's going to be an 11-day show, which will be taped on the 20th, I think, and then the following one will be on the 30th. And that'll be a 10-day show. And those 2 will have 2 items per day each. And so just people should be aware of that. You can go to geoharvey.com and click on the calendar date. We're going to be starting on the 2nd of November for this show.
This show?
Yeah, for today's show. It's November 2nd through November 8th. Today being the 9th. And so you can go to that, or you can go down on your screen and find a link to a website that has just the shows for that Tom and I are talking about. Or there should be a text file available for download that has just the shows in.
Excuse me.
Absolutely. I would say Gesundheit, but you're Irish, so what would you know? How do you say Gesundheit in Irish?
I don't know.
Okay, so we'll start. And the first picture that I will put up right now for the audience to see is a picture of a trolley car in Portugal. The article is from PV Magazine, and Tom knows what the title is.
I think I do.
Okay.
Portugal powered solely by renewables last weekend.
Yeah, Portugal relied solely on renewable energy last weekend. That is to say...
I wanted to say that it comes from PV Magazine.
Yeah, I already said that.
Oh.
Yeah, it's okay. Last weekend, largely wind and hydroelectric power to meet the electricity demand. Now, last weekend in this case is not last weekend from now.
It was last weekend from then.
It was the last weekend from then, yes. It generated 172.5 gigawatt hours of renewable energy and used 131.1 gigawatt hours between Friday night and Monday morning, exporting the excess, and that's a lot of excess.
I was going to say, that's a significant amount of power.
That is, and it exported the excess to Spain. So, you know, the Portuguese made a little money on that deal. And of course, when the Spanish have extra power, they can export it back to Portugal, or they can send it to France. I remember that years and years ago, we had a discussion on the show about a transmission line that was going to go from Spain to France, so they could share certain amounts of power. And Portugal, based on this report, I looked up how Portugal is doing, and Portugal has been spending time when it was 100% renewable off and on for over a year. And I think last week, after this report came out, there was a time that was considerably longer than a weekend that it was producing its electricity renewably, and they're putting in more renewable resources, so of course it becomes easier and easier with time for them to do that. Okay, Tom?
It's okay by me.
Okay. The next picture...
Right along.
Yeah, we are. The next picture we have is a picture of Singapore. And
now that's interesting. And Singapore looks like a well-developed, well, it is a well-developed city.
Singapore has, I believe, the highest or the second highest gross domestic product per capita in the world. And the expenses there for workers and people are extraordinarily high. And interestingly, 88% of the population owns its own homes, I have read. But this is...
Again?
Huh?
Say that again?
88% of the people who live there live in homes that they own.
Oh, that's interesting.
This is from China Daily, and you've got the title.
Singapore is seen as hub for renewable energy.
Yeah, Singapore can be a hub for renewable energy as a city-state can leverage its status as one of the world's biggest commodity trading centers and bunkering ports. According to analysts, its energy market authority has given tentative approval for plans to import 1.2 gigawatts of wind power from Vietnam. That's a lot of energy.
It is, yeah. Well, Singapore is just a city. It's just a little bitty city.
On a big island, which isn't really all that big. I mean, it's not like Madagascar. It's more like Manhattan. And then it's got a bunch of small islands. But it's a long ways from Singapore to Vietnam.
It is sad.
It's like 1,000 miles. And I don't know what the path is that they could take. They could get their electricity from Malaysia via, I don't know. I looked it up. There was a path that they could use. I think that the most logical place for them to get their electricity would be just to put a big wire under the ocean. Really, I mean, but this is going to be a lot of copper, 1.2 gigawatts? Oh, man.
Gigawatts is gigawatts.
That's right. Okay. Should I move on?
Get that.
We have a picture of a VinFast VF3. That is courtesy of VinFast. And VinFast is a Vietnamese manufacturer of cars.
Yeah, that's interesting.
This article is from Clean Technica.
VinFast, they bring the ultra-cheap VF3 to America.
To America.
That's interesting.
Isn't it? Last June, VinFast introduced the VF3, a boxy, two-door electric vehicle designed to appeal to customers in its home market of Vietnam. Now there are suggestions that VinFast might produce cars in a North Carolina factory. Why does everything happen in North Carolina? And the VF3 would be priced in the area of a little less than $20,000.
I don't think anything is selling for that cheap.
Well, I don't know. You can
In
get
America.
Yeah, you can get bicycles that cost half that much.
Yeah.
Okay. You got any comments on that? Do you like the way the car looks, Tom?
Well, it's kind of hard to say what it really looks like.
Yeah, well, maybe we should tell them.
It's a car, and most of the time in America today, cars are used for a lot less than they need to be.
That's true. Yeah.
You got one guy all alone, maybe with his dog, and he's going to work.
Yeah.
And he's got room in his car for 6 people.
Yeah. And he works, I don't know, some distance away, and he doesn't have to, really. You know, I mean, he lives in one place and he works in another 60 miles away, and the place where he lives, he doesn't like anybody, so why doesn't he move closer to work? Well, there's a reason, and the reason is that he doesn't like anybody at work either. So, you know, it's kind of a waste. We are up to...
How are you acquainted with this intimate knowledge?
How am I? I've known people who didn't like their neighbors. Okay. We are up to Friday, November 3rd. We have a picture of an agrivoltaic farm. This article comes from Clean Technica. And
those animals, what are they, sheep?
They're sheep, yeah. That's what they are. They've been shorn recently. They don't have much wool on them.
Well, it says regenerative farming. It comes from Clean Technica.
Yeah.
And, quote, harvesting sunshine, solar is America's newest cash crop.
Yeah. Go ahead, Tom, what?
That's interesting.
Yeah, it is. Agrivoltaics, the combination of agriculture and solar energy, is one of the fastest growing applications of solar. The National Renewable Energy Laboratory estimates that there are 2.8 gigawatts of agrivoltaic sites in the United States, and more projects are coming online every week. And, you know, every week we see something about agrivoltaics, something more growing.
Well, it makes sense. You're getting 2 streams of income.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is the person who owns that field where that solar array is that the sheep are running under may actually find that his income from the sheep, if that's what he had before the solar array went up, his income from the sheep may actually be equal to what it was before the solar array went in.
I would expect.
Yeah, and you know, this is something that I've looked into. The grass varieties.
Sheep don't care.
The sheep don't care. The grass varieties do as well in the shade as they do in the sunshine, and a lot of crops are like that. So this is some.
Well, we've talked about in some cases they get better output.
That's right. The example was the tomatoes that the crop that was grown under solar panels had more than double the output of tomatoes.
Who'd have thunk?
Yeah, who'd have thunk? Yeah, okay. So I'm going to move along if that's all right with you.
Can't dance.
We have a picture of a Cheetos truck.
Yeah, it's a Frito-Lay semi-truck, Tesla semi-truck.
That's what it is. Okay.
And I will say, I quote,
yeah.
Electrifying trucks, tackling inflation and saving Americans money.
Yeah, this is from Clean Technica. Truck electrification combats inflation partly because electric trucks are 2 to 5 times as efficient as diesel trucks, but also electric trucks are 2 to 5 times as efficient as diesel. But also,
they were more efficient, but I didn't think they were 2 to 5 times.
Yeah, and electricity is a lot less expensive than diesel. So the cost of fueling these things might be, it might be, well, it's going to be more than 2 to 5 times cheaper to run the electric truck. This is, depending on use and other specifics, running on electricity rather than diesel can reduce fuel costs by 40 to 60%. So you can...
Yes, baby.
And you know, the interesting thing is it's not just the fuel costs. Take one of these trucks to a mechanic and say that you need to have the carburetor adjusted or the muffler examined or whatever.
They don't need any of that
They
stuff.
don't need any of that stuff, and they're just dramatically cheaper to run because when you're done with the maintenance and the fuel and various other things, it turns out that you might have reduced the costs to 20% of what they were. And on top of that, the cost of electric vehicles is going down so fast. I don't know how these new electric trucks compare to the new diesel trucks, but I can tell you that I was absolutely floored when I discovered how cheap electric buses are in much of the world. Because what they do, BYD, that is the biggest manufacturer of them, I think, I might be wrong about that, but BYD sells the truck without the battery, and then it leases the battery.
Lease the battery.
Well, the people who are taking the truck find that it's cheaper to lease the battery and drive on electricity than it is to drive on diesel.
Yeah.
But the truck itself, the tractor, costs or the bus rather, costs like half as much because the expensive part of the electric bus is the battery. So it's a good deal for BYD, and it's a good deal for the buyer of the electric truck.
Nobody else owns the battery.
Yeah. Why do you need to own your own battery? Well, why do you need to own your own gas tank? Because it's on your car. But what if it was cheaper to lease the gas tank and you just have to pay $5 a month for it? Instead of...
That's a good analogy, really.
Yeah, okay. All right, we're going to go to a picture of an olive tree, if that's all right with you.
Looks like an olive tree to me.
I think I told you that we have olives where I live.
Yes, you did.
I think we've got 3 trees, and one of them actually was producing olives this year. Actually, all 3 of them were producing olives, but one of them was producing a fairly good-sized crop of them.
That's cool.
Isn't it? Okay, this is from ABC News. And
it says that, I quote, olive oil prices skyrocketing in Europe.
Yeah, we saw this coming about 6 months ago. Olive oil has increased by 75% since January of 2021. And in Spain, the world's biggest olive oil producer, prices have jumped a massive 115% since August of 2021. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Spanish farmers and experts primarily blame the nearly 2-year drought with higher temperatures affecting flowering of the trees. The olive trees can't produce fruit, olives, when they don't have enough water. But in high temperatures, the flowers die. So, the farmers are just kind of stuck here.
And the insects and stuff are out of step with these trees now.
Yeah. Beautiful trees, though. When you have, go online and look at for photos of olive groves, and they're just gorgeous trees. Gorgeous trees.
That's a nice tree.
Yeah.
Usually, olive trees are very short in groves.
Well, they try to keep them short so people can pick them without, needing. What do they use when the things are too tall? They use a skyhook, don't they?
If they got one available, yes.
Yeah. Skyhooks are really nice things. I used to dream about skyhooks. Okay, we have a story from Renewables Now and a picture of a wind farm in Spain.
Looks like a wind farm anywhere, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. If I had read that was a wind farm in Nebraska, I would have said, sure, it's obviously Nebraska.
Well, it comes from Renewables Now, and it says, and I quote, wind farms push Spain's renewables share to 50.7% in October.
Now, that's for the whole month of October.
Uh-huh.
Renewable sources accounted for 50.7% of Spain's total electric production in October, which is up from 42.1% a month earlier. The large increase is thanks to a sharp rise in wind power output, according to preliminary figures released by Spanish grid operator. This looks like it says Red Eléctrica de España, and I know I'm just making a mess of the Spanish pronunciation, and I apologize.
It's España, that's the only thing, but it's probably not red like we think.
It's probably red or raid or something. It's and you look. Spanish is such a weird language. If you try to use Google Translate to translate the word real, R-E-A-L, into Spanish, you'll discover that Google Translate says it means real in Spanish. And then if you try to translate royal into Spanish, it says that's R-E-A-L also. So if you start with royal and you translate it to Spanish, and then you translate that word back to English, it becomes real. So Real Madrid, is it Real Madrid or is it Royal Madrid? We don't know. Okay, and we don't care really, I don't think.
Let's move right along.
Yes, let's do that. We have a picture of a couple of guys standing near the places where they live. Yeah, which are in Indonesia. And I think this might actually be Bali. I might be wrong.
I don't know.
Anyway, this is from the BBC.
I didn't go to the original BBC site, so I don't know.
Yeah. What do you have for title?
Climate scientists are working with indigenous tribes.
Yeah, for many of us,
Any more indigenous than those guys?
Well, yeah, but that picture wasn't from the BBC. I went out and found a picture of somebody who was indigenous.
Uh-huh.
I could have found Cherokees at their reservation, but it wouldn't have worked quite as well because anyway, for many of us, climate science brings to mind satellite observations, temperature records, or analysis of ice cores. But there is plenty more data than that. Indigenous communities have long lived close to the land and often hold their own records and their own recollections. And those are important things to study sometime.
Yeah, they are. I mean, take the Amazon. We, meaning the rest of the world, has taken a look at the indigenous communities and pretended they don't exist.
We try to do that. If we can forget somehow that indigenous people exist, it's a whole lot more comfortable in this world for us, living in Brattleboro, Vermont, and looking out on a countryside that didn't have anybody from England. I should amend what I'm about to say. It didn't have anybody from England. It did have people from Ireland.
Uh-huh.
You know about St. Brendan, don't you?
Brendan the Navigator.
That's right, Brendan the Navigator. And he got into a what do they call those things? Those round boats, and yeah, actually,
or Irish hurrah.
Yeah, he did not actually get into one of those, but he got into a ship with a bunch of his followers. About 9/10 of his followers were leprechauns, but they're really easy on boats because they don't eat anything. And he sailed from Ireland to New England.
It looks like he got even as far as some of the interior U.S.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Great Lakes.
That's right, Great Lakes. And, the local leprechauns tell me that they actually went out to Minnesota, and a group of them made it as far as Oregon.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
That's why there's an apostrophe in Oregon, isn't there? Oregon.
Oh, I had never known that. Oregon. Lovely, lovely name. Okay, let's get to the stuff that we're supposed to be talking about. All right?
Well, we got a picture of a corn crop coming up.
We have a picture of a corn crop, and I actually have a little bit to say about corn crops. Okay, what do you have to say? This particular thing, I'll start out. This comes from an organization called CGTN, and I forget altogether what that means. But what do you have for a title?
Cover crops help fight climate change, but farmers fear losing money.
Yeah, cover crops top the list of tasks U.S. farmers are told will build healthy soil, help the environment, and fight climate change. But after years of incentives and encouragement, Midwest farmers planted cover crops only on about 7% of their land. They want to make money. They don't want to get a little bit of an incentive from somebody. They want to make money.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing that I will tell you, imagine that somebody came to you, imagine you're living out in the countryside and you really like the farm field across the street from your house and being able to see it, and the farmer owns it, comes to you and he says, I'm going to change things. I want you to tell me which of three things you would prefer. Would you rather have me develop that land into quarter-acre lots and have clunky little homes on it? Or would you rather have the whole thing covered with solar panels, and I will try to put things under the solar panels that will be nice for the environment? Or would you rather have a conventional corn crop? Which would be my favorite choice? Definitely not the corn crop. Because
I hear you.
a corn crop is monoculture, conventional. It's monoculture of a genetically modified organism. What is it modified for? So that you can douse it heavily with chemicals that kill just about every other kind of vegetable that could grow there. And on top of that, it's going to be doused heavily with herbicides. I mean, we started with herbicides, with fungicides.
It's kind of nasty, no matter what.
It's going to be doused with chemicals that would kill animals, insects, and insecticides. And when you're done, a conventional corn crop has no place in the environment, and it's a kind of a mini toxic waste dump. And the things that you put on it run off, and they get into the water, and they kill stuff there. This is really not good, in my opinion. And
not good, but it's easy.
It's not good, but it's easy. The other thing is, I read something this last week that said you could get 100% of the American electricity demand covered from 10 million acres of solar panels. That sounds like a lot. It is a lot. It's bigger than...
Yeah, but to put it in perspective,
30 million acres of the United States agricultural land is planted for corn that neither human beings nor animals eat.
Who eats it?
Yeast.
Yeast.
Yeah. It is converted into ethanol for gasoline for cars. And that ethanol is 10% of the gasoline pumped at the pump.
That doesn't sound like a good idea.
No, it's terrible. The total amount of electricity that we need could be covered by an amount of land that is only a third of the amount that's used to grow corn ethanol. And the article that I found that in, I actually looked it up because the woman who wrote the article, great article, in the Virginia Mercury about 2 months ago. I looked it up. She was absolutely right, according to the Department of Energy. Maybe it was the Agriculture Department. Anyway, that was that. And we're falling behind, so I've got to keep us going. Our next picture, I enjoy this next picture. We're up to Sunday, November 5th, and we have a picture of a Tesla parked by the side of the road, and in the background, we have bison grazing.
Absolutely.
And this is from Clean Technica, and you have a title.
EV charging and the grid. The truth is out there.
Yeah. There is a widely held belief that supplying enough electricity to charge all the EVs expected to be around in a few years will take huge investments, and the grid upgrades needed to meet the demands for EV charging. Now, thanks to the Green Energy Consumers Alliance, we have the facts. Some of the facts are the things that I just told you when we were looking at that cornfield. And basically what it comes down to is, no, that those things that people are saying happen not to be correct. We don't need, and again, you know, I keep coming back to, do we need those huge transmission lines that everybody says we need? I don't think we do, because we should be depending as much as possible on local electric sources, and grid transmission lines are not needed except in an emergency.
Distributed sources of electricity,
yes,
rather than transmission lines.
Yeah, you've got it, Tom. Okay, let's go on from there, unless you've got more to say.
No, I got a nice picture coming up.
Yeah.
Desertification.
Yeah. There's two ways to pronounce that. One of them is desertification, and the other is decertification. Well, decertification isn't what we're looking at, because that means you're taking something that's certified and you're taking the certificate away. This is from The East African. That is the name of the publication. What do you have for a title?
Climate change, laying healthy African land to waste.
Yeah. The UN Convention to Combat Desertification concluded that over 100 football pitches worth of healthy land is lost every minute in Africa. The problem is global. It's not just Africa. And the UNCCD says that between 2015 and 2019, the world lost at least 100 million hectares of healthy land each year. Now, a hectare is
2.25 acres.
2.25 acres. So we're talking about 225 million acres of land every year lost. And the picture that we're looking at is a picture of a place where there was trees, there still are trees, and a house, and it's getting buried by sand blowing in from the desert.
Desertification.
That's what it is. It's not my favorite choice of how I want to live. Okay, now we have a picture of San Francisco, I believe. That look like San Francisco to you?
I suppose it does, yeah.
And this says not blacked out. No, this is actually in California. So I think it's San Francisco. This is from CNN.
Fact check. Trump falsely claims California had blackouts all over the place this summer.
Yeah, former President Donald Trump falsely claimed in a speech in Texas, of course he didn't say this in California, nobody would have believed him there, that California had widespread blackouts this summer because there was insufficient electricity to meet demand. The truth is,
false.
Huh?
So that was totally false.
Yeah, the truth, the state's last blackout due to load imbalance, which is what happens when it goes out because of lack of demand, was in 2020. Now, who was president in 2020?
Trump.
Yeah. He did some other stuff too. He's said this a couple of times, that it used to be that New Jersey would have one whale washed up dead on a beach per year, and now there's 3 a week because of the wind farms, and the wind farms are driving the whales crazy because of their noise.
Who says this?
Donald Trump.
Oh, brother.
And of course, just so people understand why Tom and I are saying, oh, brother, there aren't any wind turbines off New Jersey. So what's killing the whales? I think it's hot air coming from Donald Trump.
Pretty deadly.
Okay. Okay, we are up to Monday, November 6th. And
Block Island.
yeah, this is a picture of Block Island. You can always tell if you've got a complete picture of Block Island because you've got 5 wind turbines. It's hard to see the 5th one here because it's kind of stuck on the tip of a blade for the second one. They all have stands that are yellow, and they're almost in a straight line, but it's actually a curve. And here is an article from a publication called Supply Chain Brain. It rhymes.
Energy sees cheaper wind power at massive offshore project.
Yeah, this is important because we've had lots of cancellations of offshore wind projects because they're too expensive. Okay, Dominion Energy Incorporated expects to deliver power at a cheaper price than originally expected from the largest approved offshore wind project in the United States, a rare win for a wider wind sector recently beleaguered by bad news. Shares soared the most in almost a year. Well, why does this happen? It happens because the problem with wind power isn't that the people who bid wrong. It's because they bid based on current conditions, and there was a huge surge in prices of certain components of the wind turbines and so forth because of supply chain issues. So they had to the wind turbines, wind farms that had been bid out, all of a sudden the companies that bid on them couldn't fulfill their bids because they would lose so much money. On the other hand, Dominion had a wind turbine, a wind farm off of Virginia, I believe.
It is. It's called the Coastal Virginia Wind Farm.
Yeah, and that's the one. And they had bid on this based on more recent data and won the bid. And then they realized they'd actually bid too high because the prices had come down. So, people a lot of news media are saying, oh, the price of wind power is going up and up and up, and they should pay better attention. And by the way, NuScale was going to build a nuclear power plant based on small modular reactors that it had designed in Utah.
Yeah, I remember reading about that.
They have abandoned that plan because the price,
it cost too much.
The price went up 58%.
That's too much.
Yeah. Okay, we are up to...
But by the way, this is the Coastal Virginia Wind Farm.
Yeah.
It's an amazing thing. Off the east coast of the United States, there is a big shelf, a coastal shelf.
Yes.
They could put enough wind power out there to supply energy for the whole country.
Yeah.
And they're not doing it.
Well, things take time. We'll see what it's like 10 years from now.
Yeah.
Okay.
If there's money to be made, it will happen.
Yeah, and there is money to be made. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Our next item is from Clean Technica, and we see a picture of charging stations, which are Tesla charging stations. What do you have for a title?
Study reveals the effects of fast charging of electric car battery health.
Yeah.
Now that's interesting.
It is. Recurrent Auto, that's the name of a publication, published a report on DC fast charging and battery degradation. Now, the idea here is the faster you charge it, the faster the battery is going to degrade.
That's the idea.
Yep. Quote, we compared cars that fast charge at least 90% of the time to cars that fast charge less than 10% of the time. The results show no statistically significant difference in range degradation.
Now that's interesting.
Isn't that interesting? I thought that was really fascinating. So there's a thing that people worry about and they don't have to worry about.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a picture that it pretends to show, and again, this is a picture that I got. It's kind of hard to find a picture of biodiversity, but here is a picture that I'm going to claim actually does kind of show biodiversity not very well. I apologize. And to support an article from China Daily. What do you have for title, Tom?
China, Japan, and South Korea reaffirm pledges for climate action.
Yeah, I found this really interesting because China, and on the one hand, and Japan and South Korea on the other, have been putting out a lot of rhetoric aimed at each other, and they were able to come up with an agreement. The environmental ministers of China, Japan, and South Korea reaffirmed their commitments to tackle climate change, biodiversity loss, and environmental pollution. The countries say they remain committed to multilateralism and are willing to encourage close collaboration.
That's good news.
Yeah, it's good news. Of course, the thing is, I don't really trust the Chinese when it comes to environmental stuff, but hopefully
for a communist country, they're the biggest capitalist country in the world.
I know. It's really sad. Okay, we're up to Tuesday, November 7th, and we have a picture of Kauai, which is...
That's a nice picture.
It's a nice picture, and it really doesn't represent anything that has to do with the article. The article comes from Canary Media. So what do you have for a title? Kauai, by the way, for those who don't know, is an island in Hawaii.
Yes, it's part of Hawaii, very far western Hawaii.
Yeah.
Kauai is a clean energy leader. Its secret, a publicly owned grid.
Yeah.
How absurd.
How what?
How absurd.
Kauai's grid infrastructure took a beating from Hurricane Iniki.
It did.
In 1992, that was a little over 30 years ago, and the business that owned the grid wanted to sell. I'm going to put that picture up. We talked about it and I didn't put it up. Kauai residents raised financing and acquired the utility in 2002, turning it into a locally owned cooperative, reduced rates that had once been Hawaii's highest, and now those rates are Hawaii's lowest. And when I read this, I realized that in some circumstances, calling this publicly owned is not really specific enough. It's a cooperative, and the people on Kauai own it. It's owned by the people, so you might as well say it's a socialist grid, but it's a little different from...
It's a little bit different than pure socialists. Socialism, government owns everything.
Yeah.
And a co-op, the people who work there own it.
Yeah, well, here it's the people who use the electricity own it, as I understand it, and I might be wrong. It might be that they turned it over to the government, but one way or the other...
It's probably the people who well, I don't know.
Yeah. It occurred to me that in some circumstances, definitely not all, but in some circumstances, the business of having companies own infrastructure so that they can make a profit on it is going to be inefficient and not serve the customers the way that, what they would call public ownership would.
I don't understand.
It's like you've got a chain of things that the money passes through, and having a private organization in the middle of it to make money is going to make it less efficient, because some of the money is going to be removed for the stockholders. Okay, we have a picture here of something I had never seen before.
A big bubble.
A big bubble curtain. And this is from BBC, so it obviously is real because BBC said so. Obviously.
The big bubble curtains protecting porpoises from wind farm noise.
Now, lest you think that this noise comes from wind turbines, it doesn't. Over the past decade, a curious invention has spread across Europe's northern seas. It's called a big bubble curtain. It works a bit like a giant jacuzzi, and it helps protect porpoises from the massive underwater noise caused by wind farm construction. In other words, they put this thing up, use it to cover the noise of construction, and then when the construction is done, they take it away because the wind turbines aren't noisy enough to bother the dolphins.
No, they don't bother. They're way up in the air.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go on if you don't mind, Tom.
Why not?
And we have a picture here of a gigafactory. My blog.
Looks like a gigafactory to me.
Yeah, my blog had immediately after this, the next day, there was another picture of a different gigafactory, and they all look alike. And I actually said that in the second one. This is from Clean Technica.
Well, that gigafactory is almost the size of Rhode Island.
Yeah, you might be right. What do you have for a title?
Tesla to build 25,000 euro car at a German gigafactory.
Yeah. An anonymous source who claims to have knowledge of the matter says Tesla plans to produce a car with a starting price of 25,000 euros, which is $6,838, at its factory in Grünheide, Germany, according to a Reuters report. The source did not say when the new car production would begin. Now, I mentioned that the next day, I had another article about a gigafactory which also had a picture. And that article the next day said Elon Musk had actually said this. So I had to put it up because the first day it sounded like it might be speculation. The next day it was Elon Musk. And I think he still didn't say what the date would be. But you know, if they're going to do this in Europe, they're going to do it in the United States. So we'll just see how it happens. And we are up to Wednesday, November 8th, with a picture of funny-looking things out on the prairie.
They call it a wind farm.
Do you think it's really a wind farm, or do you think it's something else?
I think it's something else.
Well, I'll tell you.
Disguised as a wind farm.
What's that?
Cleverly disguised as a wind farm.
Probably. One thing I can tell you is there's a mess of wind turbines on this thing.
Yeah, for sure.
There really is a mess of them. And that, I don't know which wind farm it is. I did know when I put it together, but I don't know now. This is from ABC News. It might be...
Air Force asked Congress to protect nuclear launch sites from wind turbines.
Yeah.
Huh?
The Air Force underground nuclear missile silos are rarely disturbed by more than an occasional and wandering cow. But the service is now asking Congress to help with another unexpected danger, towering wind turbines, which are edging closer to the sites every year. Now, I don't know what they're going to do about that, but that's what they're doing. They're saying that they don't want wind turbines all near the sites. So
It baffles me what their gripe is.
I don't know. It might have something to do with radar. One of the Air Force has complained to the Energy Department about radar and wind turbines on a number of occasions over the years.
Uh-huh.
So, you know, if they have wind turbines come up in the middle of their radar system, they
screw up the radar.
They screw up the radar. And I don't know, maybe I would think that this would also produce a lot of ground clutter for weather radar also. But, you know, there it is. I don't know what they're going to do about this or how they're going to do it. The fact of the matter is, we don't need, you know, as I said, we could get 100% of our electricity from 10 million acres of solar panels. We don't need anywhere near that amount of area of wind turbines. And
But we got the room to put the wind turbines in the East Coast.
Yeah, we've got a lot of places to put wind turbines, and they're very useful in places like Minnesota and the Dakotas, Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Colorado, Wyoming. We don't need to cover all that much land in those places. And the Air Force is saying that they would prefer that we not put in wind turbines in places where, in their opinion, it would interfere with nuclear silos and whatever defense things they want to get. They're not.
They got to do something about the occasional wandering cow too.
They do actually, but you know they can. They can hire a farmer to go, or a cowboy rather, to go. What do they call it? Bulldogging.
Uh-huh.
And knock it down and tie it up and cart it off. Okay. All right.
Let's move on. We got another nice picture of November.
We have a nice picture of November, but it is not November in Vermont, I'm pretty sure.
Uh-huh.
I would think that might be November in, what do you think, Virginia?
Well, there's no colors starting to show here. Not very much, anyhow.
A lot of our leaves are gone.
Yeah, without turning red, without turning yellow.
We had a little bit that you could see from where I live, but not much. I remember when I was living in Massachusetts, driving into a town. My family had just very recently moved into the town, and this was our first fall. And we drove into the middle of town, and the trees looked like what you're seeing here, except that when we did that, the sun was shining, and the trees were just brilliantly gold colored, and it was just unbelievable. But I haven't seen a sight like that since. So, and people are still coming to Vermont to be leaf peepers, and I'm not sure that I don't think it's anywhere near as good as it was in the olden days.
It certainly isn't this year.
No. Anyway, this comes from the BBC, and what do you have for a title?
Virtually certain, in quotes, that 2023 will be the warmest year after its October record.
Yes, this year's heat waves, floods, and fires have been deadly. Now, it's virtually certain that 2023 will be the warmest year on record after October's temperatures were 0.4 degrees Celsius above the previous high of October 2019. It was the fifth month in a row that set a record for heat.
So even Brattleboro is getting warmer.
I got news for you, Tom. You know, when I was a little kid, I lived across the river.
Yeah, you did, didn't you?
It was a bicycle ride to Brattleboro.
Yeah.
And I wasn't in Hinsdale, I was in Winchester, which is, it's just a few miles farther. And I remember the winters, and I remember temperatures that came very close to 30 below zero. And I haven't seen a temperature like that since I moved to Brattleboro almost 20 years ago.
30 below zero is pretty darn cold.
It's pretty darn cold. And it felt colder in those days than it would now because the house that I lived in was not insulated.
Uh-huh.
But, it was a very different experience.
I bet.
And it was just a very different experience.
Well, the fall foliage this year, or as some say, the foliage, it's not anywhere near like this year.
No, it hasn't been. We've had a few trees here and there that were really pleasant to look at, but it hasn't been like this. It hasn't been, the just magnificent colors that we have had in the past.
I was going to say we've seen this in the past. So
yeah, we have. That's right. But I would say fall foliage is not what it used to be, for the simple reason that it's warmer.
Yeah, I was just going to say this is the fifth month in a row of record warmth.
Yeah. Okay, we have one last piece, which is from Clean Technica, and it's another piece about Kauai, Hawaii.
Yeah, we're back to Kauai, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. So what do you have?
A picture of solar plus storage.
Yeah, that's what that is. The solar obviously is on the left and center, and the storage is those white things that are on the below the center a little bit.
Well, that's
on the
the
right.
storage right down there, huh?
That's the storage. That's right. It doesn't take a lot of room to store a lot of energy. And so, what do you have for a title?
Redwood Materials helps to recycle Kauai's stationary energy storage system.
Yeah, this is a
Redwood Materials is the name of a company.
yeah, it is. This is an interesting story which has absolutely nothing to do with a story that we talked about earlier, except that they happen to be in more or less the same place. The synopsis says, in Hawaii, the Kauai Island Utility Cooperative currently has a 4.6 megawatt hour battery storage system that is ready to be decommissioned. So the utility is getting help from Redwood Materials for the decommissioning process, as well as recycling the batteries. And of course, where we were talking about why Kauai had lower energy costs than the other islands, here we're talking about Kauai is recycling the batteries because they're getting old. And how old are they? Honestly, I don't remember. But they're at the end of their life. And these are, I should explain, automotive batteries are very often used after they come out of cars and are replaced. They are used for storing energy for grid servicing. And so they take these used batteries that have lost maybe 25-30% of their life, so somewhere between 70 and 75% of their life remains, and they put them off to store energy for the grid because they don't need to accelerate a car. Their ability to deliver power fast is no longer a thing that is of interest. So they can serve for a very long time on the grid. I don't remember how long these batteries had been in service, but they're replacing them. The important thing is that Redwood Materials is taking them off and recycling them. This is real. It's happening in the world right now. And the indications that I see say that they actually recycle something like 95-98% of the important materials. So there it is.
Well, these batteries are full of useful stuff.
Yeah.
Good using it over with them instead of taking a mine for some new stuff.
That's right. Yeah. Okay, we're at the end of the whole thing. We're telling everybody to have a thoroughly delightful week. I am waving goodbye.
And I am waving goodbye.
Tom is waving goodbye, and Tom's cat.
My cat's not waving goodbye.
Tom's cat is hiding in the closet.
He's hiding somewhere.